This review will contain spoilers for Batman Caped Crusader Season 1 and 2. Alright, it's me, Pup. How are you doing? I, for one, am feeling a little bit mixed because I just finished up watching Batman Caped Crusader Season 2. Now, for reference, I praised the first season as a reinvented B-side to Batman the Animated Series. Villains felt less like adaptations, more extrapolations on the same overall concept. Wrap it all up in a 1940s noir style, with some thoughtful commentary on police corruption, and while by no means is it a patch on Batman the Animated Series, you do at least have a neat little B-side to it. Something fresh and new that has the same overall vibes to Batman the Animated Series. And overall, I really enjoyed that season. That said, it didn't have a great deal of staying power, and I don't think that's just because they reinvented the characters. I think it's that they could definitely have pushed the noir style a little bit further. Maybe go for higher contrasts in the lighting, make more use of shadows and silhouettes, get some Dutch angles in there. I will say, when it comes to noir reinterpretations of superheroes, Spider-Noir definitely brought a lot more stylistic source to it. Now, that is a much bigger budget project, and it's also live action, but still, they definitely could have thought of the things that I just thought of, because that's kinda exactly what Batman the Animated Series did. It's funny, because Batman Caped Crusader is trying to be more of a stylized version of the Batman universe, but it's not really successful in that it is less stylized than the show it's a spiritual successor to. Yes, this one's a bit more committed to taking place in the 1930s. It's a bit gloomier, but there are more noir stylistic sensibilities in Batman the Animated Series than there are here. The overall hazy look of Batman Caped Crusader just wasn't all that memorable. And it's like, yeah, you could go for more kind of expressive lighting and coloring, but again, boom, Batman the Animated Series did exactly that. The problem you have here is that stylistically, it's just lesser. Granted, I liked some of the character redesigns. Batman looked cool. It's almost kind of jarring, though, how faithful Batman is, considering everything else is a reinvention. Overall, yes, Season 1 was a good story. Could have pushed things a little further in terms of stylization. I think that might have given it a bit more staying power. Now, I'm not sure if I'm only noticing it here, or if it genuinely is just more noticeable this time, but I definitely detected a difference in the animation, and not for the better. There are times when Batman Caped Crusader has this very sort of webtoony look to it, and the reason for that is because 2D animation isn't really done the way it was back in the 90s very often anymore. It's a very expensive, time-consuming workflow, and for some reason society just allowed the animation economy to backslide to the degree where this is now the norm when this is what we had before. The transition from Batman the Animated Series to Batman Caped Crusader is akin to the transition from the original King of the Hill run to the modern, rebooted King of the Hill run, in that they've switched from hand-drawn animation to rigged puppet animation, where like heads, facial expressions, individual body parts, these are all pre-drawn assets, all rigged to a skeleton similar to a 3D model, and you kind of switch between motions and expressions, and you could see a lot more of that in Season 2 than I think you could in Season 1. You could definitely tell this season when a scene has been specially animated that's usually for action beats, versus more talking scenes where they are suddenly stiff puppets. I would definitely appreciate if studios would invest in hand-drawn animation again. I mean, it's not like the animation team haven't taken measures to make it at least look nice. The trade-off is that you get characters that look consistently on model, which could not be said for the original Batman the Animated Series. Individual character assets can be a bit more detailed because there's less drawing involved, and they tend to make the backgrounds look nice. So it's not like they haven't tried to make the show look good, it's just it's very noticeably a lower budget. And I think this is one of those occasions where you could actually benefit from a slight increase. On an episode-by-episode basis, there were definitely elements of Batman Caped Crusader Season 2 that I was preferring to Season 1. I did like the fact that Season 2 had more of a focus on Batman himself. Season 1 would have whole episodes devoted to Renee Montoya and Barbara Gordon, and these were fine, but for a Batman show, I won't lie, the more Batman focus of Season 2 is appreciated. That's one thing where I can say that Season 2 kind of stepped things up. But for me, it's the overarching story of the season and the general themes that feel very dumbed down compared to Season 1. Season 1 being more of a mob story with police corruption and just general legal corruption. It was clear that the legal system was failing Gotham City, and it was something that Batman was kind of rising against. Season 2's ongoing arc is that the Joker is working behind the scenes on a viral gaseous Joker gas that he uses to turn people into superpowered Joker zombies effectively. And that's the thing, when Season 1 had such a focus on corruption and just the general rot of those in power in Gotham City, Season 2 effectively just boiling itself down to a zombie apocalypse story really just doesn't give me anywhere near as much to dig around in as Season 1 did. Season 1 landed especially well with its main villains. You had Rupert Thorne, the GCPD, and in Harvey Dent up until the point he becomes Two-Face. This was a really neat twist, but compare that to the overarching villains of Season 2, where we follow on from the Rupert Thorne story in Season 2. Rupert Thorne spends a brief period incarcerated before using his power to get out, but then quickly goes missing. Stepping in to seize control of Gotham City is Eddie the Riddler Nigma, as our primary villain for the first stretch of the show. And somebody better get me some riddling, because this Riddler ain't riddling. I understand that the villains of Batman Caped Crusader are extrapolations on the same general idea of the Batman Rogues Gallery. And generally, the reinterpretations in Season 1 were pretty strong. Riddler, on the other hand, absolutely sucks. This version of the Riddler is so lame. See, there's no fascination with games or puzzles or riddles or brain teasers or any of that. He has no insecurity about intellect, he doesn't even mention it. He's not in it to outsmart the Batman. They haven't taken any of that and reworked it or reinvented it. This time he's called the Riddler because he riddles people with bullets. Well, that is just a misfire. This is a version of the character that is just lesser. Nothing about what made the Riddler before special is here in the slightest. And the result is an incredibly forgettable 40s mob enforcer, who's a bit of a lover boy as well, that has absolutely no relation to the Riddler other than just the name. Like, when they did Harley Quinn in Season 1, she was still a psychiatrist. They made that her main thing. They didn't just take the name and then extrapolate something on that. What made them work is they extrapolated on the concept, not the name. So the end result is, looks like a Riddler, sure sounds like a Riddler, but he's just an incredibly forgettable character whose name is just a lame pun. Corruption at the GCPD is an element in this story, but it is by no means given the focus like it was in Season 1. However, they do factor quite heavily into the main threat of the show, and that is the Joker. He spends a good chunk of time operating behind the scenes until he finally emerges, and I gotta say they do a good job at actually earning the gravitas for that scene. It does at least feel like the show's kind of earned the Joker, and it's like, okay, now that we're here, what's going to happen? And I suppose I gotta give them credit in that, like, the only thing they ever set up with this version of the Joker was the happy toxin. And that's all that really results. The Joker uses a bioweapon, his laughing gas, and turns all of Gotham City into laughing Joker zombie maniacs. And I couldn't help but wonder, is that it? Is that what this is boiling down to? Zombie apocalypse story? Worse yet, one with minimal consequence. There is a lethal showdown between Joker zombified Bullock and Flass. Bullock is shot at several times, and the end result is that once the Joker toxin is worn off, everybody's fine. He's fine. Bullock and Flass are fine. It seems weird to keep them around when they had so little to do this season. The Joker subplot also introduces Dr. Hugo Strange for a bit, before he's then immediately killed by the Joker toxin. I guess it is kind of cool that he retains his Strange Days design, though, giving credence to the idea that Strange Days was a backdoor pilot for this. As for the Joker himself, he's a forgettable incarnation of the character. There were some inspired ideas here. He himself isn't really this clown prince of crime. He's not a laughing maniac kind of character. Instead, the role that comedy plays in his character is kind of the timing. He's an absolute master of timing. But it's really in his victims where we see that laughter and that mania. Joker here is much more akin to, say, Jeremiah Valeska from Gotham. Cold, calculated, and cunning, but not quite so chaotic, at the same time with a big affinity for Batman, in this case referring to him as brother, and he kind of has that them and us mentality towards, like, the insane, the emotionally scarred, like him and Batman, versus the insects, which are just the normal people. That element of the Joker's personality is intact, and I do appreciate that they gave him a German accent, taking cues from the character Gwynplaine from The Man Who Laughs, which was the original inspiration for the Joker. But what it basically amounts to is, Joker Apocalypse. The Joker wants to turn everybody into Joker, and then he monologues at Batman about how the two are connected. We've seen all of this before. That freshness that made the first season's villain reinterpretations work is just nowhere to be found here. Yeah, love that he sounds like Werner Herzog, but what does it add? Where the show does shine a little more, though, is on the episode-per-episode basis. The individual stories divorced from the main overall arc, which was a weak serving this season. We had an episode dedicated to Roxy Rocket, this time going by the Rocketeer, and rather than being a thrill-seeker, she is instead the vengeful creator of a power source that a company called Triad, I know, Doctor Who fans, I know, are about to test and intend to sell to foreign governments for profit. We have an episode where Batman takes on the Cult of Barbatos, and it kind of serves as a sequel to the Gentleman Ghost episode of Season 1, with Batman even paying Lyndon a visit to ask about the Cult of Barbatos, considering if the supernatural has returned. But in this case, the twist is that the Bat-God Barbatos is just a scam being peddled by the Mad Monk. I enjoyed this episode. Batman taking on a murder cult? Why not? Sounds fun. We've also got a sequel story to the episode where Corrigan tries to kill Barbara Gordon. This time, he's transformed into the Spectre, where he gains the literal power for vengeance. But the big twist is that by the end, he only wants forgiveness from Barbara. But to be honest, this one was kind of shallow for what it was. Most of the episode is just Jim Corrigan stumbling around in a zombie form going, vengeance. And by the end, when he does ask Barbara for forgiveness, it's like, were the two really that close? Was what transpired in that episode really that important to him? Harleen Quinzel makes a comeback to take on the Scarecrow, who has more kind of like a plague mask look. And again, it's an okay episode, if not one that kind of slides off the brain. And of course, we get to see one of my favorite Batman villains, Mr. Freeze, reinterpreted as Mr. Zero. Mr. Zero being the original name of the character. And here's an example of a completely reworked villain done right compared to, say, the Riddler. The tragic backstory is stripped away, and instead Mr. Zero is a criminal who flash freezes dead bodies to preserve them. His face clearly paralyzed as well, so he has more of a voice box thing talk for him. Notice how we've got different aspects of Mr. Freeze as a character here. The fact that he literally freezes people, he's still lost his humanity, while Riddler, on the other hand, they just took the name and made a pun on it. In the same episode as Mr. Zero, we also get the reintroduction of Carrie Kelly from the previous season, this time introduced under the new alter ego of Crime Smasher. She's inspired both by Batman and the Grey Ghost, and wants to be a detective, but Bullock keeps threatening to take her to juvie if she's out past curfew. This was a great story as well, but I don't understand why she had to be called Crime Smasher. Could they not come up with a more noir-esque name? Or, I don't know, maybe just call her the Grey Ghost or Grey Ghost Jr.? She is a kid after all, she's not gonna be that original. Overall, episode for episode, there were definitely things that I did enjoy more about Season 2 over Season 1. The more Batman focus, I do like the fact that they were able to go a bit more out there with some of the concepts as well than Season 1 did. But Season 1 definitely had higher highs. The overall arcing story of the season was a lot better, and all of the main villains were done well. For Season 2, the overarching story is just much more, what is the Joker up to? What's he gonna do? And you can predict what he's gonna do from the jump. You know who the Joker is, you know how the laughing gas works, so building it up like it's some kind of mystery box is completely unnecessary. These kinds of things where you have like a story going on in the background can feel very much like, oh, it's time for the Joker to appear now. And that's exactly how this one feels. A looming threat that feels more just like a, hey, you know who this is, implications, rather than feeling really all that involved in the story. And he does have his kind of, it was me moment, where he's like, you know, I was the one who killed Rupert Thorne. But it just isn't mega convincing. And I think this season definitely had clearer pacing issues. The whole Joker threat, he feels like he's taken down way too quickly, but also the nature of how he's taken down as well. I don't think it was ever mentioned beforehand that we've got a Batman who kills here. Hell, I think the fact that he's a merciful vigilante was established very early on. But Batman seems to kill the Joker here. For the plan that he carries out, there is no way this wouldn't have killed him. Like, what was Batman's plan otherwise? What, just put a bunch of poles down to make it an inconvenience? Then when the Joker is completely impaled, Batman doesn't really seem shocked or anything.
You talk too much, brother.
Like it wasn't already part of the plan. In fact, he more or less validates it as part of the plan. Then the Joker falls, and it's mentioned that no body was found, but Batman operates under the assumption that the Joker is dead, so, like, Why is it never really meditated on that Batman just killed the Joker there? Like, it doesn't even feel like a built-in part of the story. I'm just really confused. Another thing that maybe surprised me, maybe not so much, is that there is no teaser for a next season for this one like there was with the previous season with the Joker tease. Maybe just establishing that there could be some tensions between Flash and Bullock in the future? But with the announcement of the Absolute Batman series, I don't know if they're necessarily going to follow this one up with a Season 3. And there's no word of a renewal when we did know that there would be a Season 2 when Season 1 dropped. If you did end it here, and that was just it, these 2 seasons are just Batman Caped Crusader, I would say that it's a good show, but it's more kind of in the middle of Batman animated shows. Definitely not in the same ranks as Batman the Animated Series or Batman the Brave and the Bold, but by no means bad. If it does get brought back, I do think it would be good if we could get a bit more of an animation budget. The puppet animation at times is just a little bit jarring this season, but I also just think it needs more style. Like, this is a noir version of Batman. Let's go all the way. Spider-Man has undoubtedly spoiled me here, showcasing, just from a narrative and filmmaking standpoint, what a noir reinvention of a superhero can be. Batman Caped Crusader just feels like a half measure in comparison. Which is why it's like, yeah, it's alright. You know, I give it a single thumbs up. It's fine. It's worth watching. Season 2 definitely isn't as strong as the first one, but it's fine. So there you have it. Batman Caped Crusader. It's fine. First season was definitely stronger in my opinion. If it had been left to just that, I might have felt it with more reverence, to be honest. Alright, patron time. Manalza, KB, Twilight, Biotin, Serious Skeptic, and Mr. SP. Gail Bennett, first one will be Sonic 1 on Genesis. Okay, we are just advertising your channel now, that's fine. I mean, this is a good way to do it. Air Denny, Sad, Goku, Ghostly Phantom, Neo Metal Pup, Council of Geeks, SSS06, Carl X, RT0, Marv Animation, Grant Allen, Josh Strider, Ben Raven, I'm a transmission in a car. I go vroom vroom. Thank you very much, basic content. Seal Wells, Press Play to Jason, Joseph Tribble, and Joe Henshin. Thank you, folks, so much for your generosity. And to the rest of yous, my channel is the buffet. Go get yourself another plate. Go get fat. You know how this works. Hell yeah.